Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Uh, Jeff, I made you co-host. Is it possible for you
Yes,
to moderate?
absolutely.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so we are meeting at our home. You could see the Wildlife Bangalore guys enjoying their time. They are going to have dinner. Yeah, Chris just finished his meeting. Right. I think we can get going, right?
Okay.
Okay. Jeff, should we wait for a couple more minutes or we could, I think there are 20 people there, so we should get started. Just a minute.
Yes, very good. And it's so good to see Wildlife Bangalore. Wow.
Hmm. Yeah, Wildlife Bangalore, please wave, guys.
You're looking for the questions? I've got them right here.
Okay.
So just here.
Welcome everybody for our podcast with Christopher. Christopher, thank you so much. Welcome to India. We are so glad to have you with us in Bangalore, right at our home. So thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So today we are going to talk about more about Christopher's trails and mysticism. Okay. So, Christopher, how did it all start? When and why? Tell us all about it.
Okay, so from a young age, I have always been a pursuer of God. And I have chased after God and wanted more of God. And then also from a young age, I have also enjoyed nature. And I've enjoyed being outdoors, and especially during my college years and coming out of college, I enjoyed going to visit the national park and seeing these incredible wonders that are available to us.
Awesome. So, how does nature play a role in experiencing God in unique sense? We are really interested in knowing that.
I think that it's so important to realize that nature is an expression of God's nature.
Yes.
And it's a reflection of God. And so when we can learn to see God in nature, it expands our ability to connect with God.
Right.
Because it says the earth is full
of God's glory.
Of God's glory.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any specific, I know that you've been onto many trails. So are there any specific trails known for their mystical or spiritual significance?
Yes, there are. Even from the Middle Ages, people have been going out into nature and they've been going on trails. And, hundreds of years ago, we called them pilgrimages. And people went on pilgrimages all the time. They would go on a pilgrimage to the Holy Lands. They would go on a pilgrimage to this saint's grave.
Yeah.
Even in our modern time, there are the same things that people go out into nature to seek God.
Right.
And I think one of the trails that's really significant worldwide is the Camino de Santiago. It's a trail that goes from France through northern Spain to the burial place of James, the brother of Jesus.
Right.
And so a lot of people do that trail, some just to see what the trail is about, but for a lot of people, it's about seeking God. It's about resolution and things in their life. It's look for answers. There's seeking, there's questions. And so definitely trails are, there's a lot of mystical things in the trails.
That's awesome, Christopher. Thank you for sharing that. How does one cultivate a sense of openness and receptivity while hiking? I know it could get really lonely, or sometimes if you don't meet other trekkers.
Receptivity and openness in hiking. I think part of it is that sometimes in our lives, we're really busy. And there's this city and there's noise and there's pressure and demands. And sometimes because of that, we lose wonder
Right,
and we lose awe.
yes,
And so part of being out on the trail and part of that openness and receptiveness is like getting out there and like today we went to the botanical garden in Bangalore
yes.
and just to see how a tree grows and to look at the shape of the roots and to look at the pattern of the bark and to look at how distinct and how unique it is. It stirs up this awe. And there's something about the awe of creation that brings about an awe of the creator.
Yes, awesome. Yeah. Now that you're talking all about trails, some of our folks from India would want to do a trail. So I mean, there's plenty of places in India. Literally, you could live here for another 5 to 10 years and go around trekking, trailing. So what are the tips, some of the tips that you would want to share with us for those of us who've not been on any trail?
I would say a couple of things. First of all, when I started, I would visit the US national parks with my friends and we would just do day trips. We would go in, hike a few miles, we would have lunch, we would come out of the park, and then that evening we would have a meal, we'd go to a hotel. It was low key, there was no stress, and there are a number of places like Smoky Mountain National Park if you're in the United States. You could go to Yosemite, you could go to the Redwood National Forest that are easy. I mean, where it's not like strenuous or like super hard mountain climb but where you can get out and you can experience things, even just driving like to the Grand Canyon. You can stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon and you see how vast it is and how massive it is,
Right.
and the colors and the light, and it's just to allow yourself to be in awe and to just have wonder fill you. And so I would say start small, just wherever you are. Like you just go outside in your own community, in your own neighborhood, and just walk down the street and look for the things that stir awe and wonder in you.
Right.
And then the other thing that I would say is,
Yeah.
as I began preparing for the big trail, it was the first time that I was doing overnight camping. And so I just began walking every day. And I would walk a little more every day.
Right.
And so after a week, I'd walk maybe another half a kilometer or another half a mile.
Yeah.
After 2 weeks. And so for 9 months, I actually began preparing.
Wow.
And so at the end of 9 months,
Yeah.
I was walking 15 to 18 miles a day, whereas I started with maybe 2 or 3 miles a day.
Wow.
And so I just built up slowly over time.
Yeah.
And so that's the second thing I would say. And then the third thing, I did a lot of research on gear, and gear was really important.
Right.
And especially when you're doing any kind of long hike, you need the right equipment.
Right.
And so I would say that do your research on your gear and see what fits your needs. And sometimes you don't actually know until you take it out and you try it, and you go and you say, well, this backpack isn't really comfortable.
Right.
So you scrap that one, you thought it was gonna be a good idea, you get a different one, and then you find what's a good fit for you. And so I would say you start where you are.
Yeah.
Start small, and then build up.
Yeah.
Practice, exercise.
Yeah.
Increase endurance, and then do research on your equipment and things that you need. If you want to go someplace, let's say you wanted to do a trail, like there's some trails in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Well, start reading about them, start watching documentaries on them, start seeing what other people have done. What do they say? What are their experiences?
Right.
And then just start doing research on it as well.
Okay. All right. So the next question our folks might ask you is how fit one should be, or what kind of food we could carry, because Indians love food, and you experienced this since last 2 days.
Okay. What kind of fitness level do you need to have? So I would say, first of all, that everyone can do something. Whatever your fitness level is, you can start somewhere.
Awesome.
And even if you can just walk to the end of the street and walk back to your house, that's a place to start.
Mhm.
And it's a fitness journey for everyone. And it doesn't have to be, you know, when I was on the big trail, I was doing 20 to 25 miles a day. Well, you don't have to do, you
Yeah.
don't have to do 12-hour days. You don't have to do a trail for 6 months,
Right,
but you can go out for an hour. You can, so any fitness level, you can start somewhere and start building fitness into this.
Right.
And you can start building exploration and things like that. And for a lot of it as well, is like there are places that are very easily accessible
Mm.
by car.
Mm.
So you can go to a place, but in your car,
Right.
you walk to a viewpoint or a lookout. And you could be in a wheelchair and just get out of your car in the wheelchair and just look out at the view.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing awe and wonder and thing in nature.
Yeah.
Now, as far as what kind of food to take and how Indians would, that is a. Wow,
Needs a bit of a research.
well, it's when I hiked,
Yeah.
about half of my food was dry and
Yeah.
ready to eat.
Okay,
About half of my food, you add boiling water to it to prepare a hot meal.
right,
So half of my food you add water to, half of the food's ready to eat. And because some places you don't know where there's gonna be availability of water. And so you don't wanna have to use up all of your water supply to cook food.
Mm.
But sometimes when water is a bit abundant, you're able to do hot meals and you can use the water as you need to,
Right.
and so.
Yeah.
But as far as India goes, I don't know how you would take your curry and your biryani and
we
your
do
rice
ready
and,
to eat stuff. Yeah,
my trail food and my trail experience
yeah,
wasn't like I took the food that I loved and I ate every day it was just,
the line,
I just took the food
Yeah.
that was good for being on the trail.
yes,
And you just kind of have to research that food and you
Yeah.
have to kind of research what you like
yeah,
and what you don't like. Cause there's a lot of trail food out there and people think, oh, I'm gonna take all these health bars and I'm gonna take this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they realize, I don't even like these health bars and they end up throwing them away anyway, so they don't end up with those health bars, so.
yeah. So, talk to us about some of your encounters with God, on these, trails, and also, how our mindset expands when we are on trail. Rather than we all are from city, the Bangalore folks are here. We live in a cosmopolitan city, so we are kind of, we live in apartments or independent houses. So how does our mind expand and how does what happens to our nervous system when we go on these trails?
Well, you know, it's interesting, as you read through scripture, you find that people have really dynamic and powerful encounters in nature.
Mhm.
You have the children of Israel that went through the wilderness for 40 years. You have Elijah, he was fed by ravens
Yes.
at the brook Kidron, you know, so they brought him food every day. You have Jesus who went through the wilderness. You have John the Baptist who went through the wilderness. And as they come out of it, there's a transformation, there's an experience, there's something that happens. And I cannot express enough to people how important it is to just get out,
Yeah,
to get away.
yeah,
When I was younger, I used to think of the wilderness was like the Sahara Desert, you know, it's just sand
Yeah.
dunes.
yeah,
There's nothing,
right,
but really the wilderness is just a place where there are no voices.
yes,
There's no traffic, there's no demands, there's
Yeah.
no, and in the quietness
Mm.
and in the stillness,
Mhm.
you start to you realize, oh, there's more than the demand of the day to day. There's more than the pressure. There's more than this pressure to perform or to be or to do. Oh, it's like, oh, I can let go of some things. I don't have to carry this anymore. And you really find that when you go into this wilderness, it's not a scary place,
yes,
but it's a place where
Mm.
there's stillness.
Yes.
There's quietness. It's the still small voice. Well, you know, when Elijah heard the still small voice,
right,
he wasn't in a metropolis.
yeah,
It wasn't this hustle and bustle and loud city and all the things. And
Mhm.
he was out in the wilderness. He
Yes.
was, and it wasn't in the earthquake and it wasn't in the fire and it wasn't in, and it was this voice that he heard inside himself. Ah, this whisper. And that's where a lot of times, for a lot of people, they have to get into that place to learn to hear that small voice.
Right, yeah. Okay, that's really awesome. How does the void and getting into, I mean, what you say is like getting into a place of stillness when we walk through the trails, and how does sitting at home and getting into the void versus being on the trail, getting into that stillness, how does it compare?
That's a good question. Um, you know, whatever means we can use to get there into the place of
That's
stillness.
important.
That's what's important.
Right.
But I can definitely say there's something about being out in creation. One of the things for me is like when you're standing, like I climbed Mount Whitney and you can see just Mount Whitney's over 14,000 feet. And it's the highest peak in the continental United States. And you just have the sense of your smallness.
Yes,
It's very humbling.
right.
And so it's very much like I can be in my home and I can be in prayer and I can be in meditation,
Right.
but I don't always get that same sense of awe.
Yes.
I don't get that same sense of wonder.
Right.
And there's something about the
Yeah.
majesty of this sunset, this
Right.
majesty of this tree that's 400 years old, and
Yeah.
that you're just looking at how expansive and how massive it is,
Mm.
that you don't get that same perspective when you're at home in meditation.
Right.
And not saying that being at home in meditation is bad, but it's just something that it does expand you
Right.
when you're there, because you have an experience that's like, you can't get it
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So could you talk to us a little bit more about your longest trail and how your takeaways or the learnings, and how God, was there any challenge in terms of provision, and how God met your needs, and what were the takeaways from those experiences?
All right. So the longest trail that I did was called the Pacific Crest Trail. It runs from the Canadian border to the Mexican border. It runs through Washington State, Oregon State, and California.
Yeah.
It's 2,650 miles.
Wow.
And it took me about 6 months.
Wow.
And
Truly wow.
wow. And the whole thing was wow. I mean, everything was surrounded with wow, and everything was bathed in wow. And it was just such a wow experience. As I was on the trail, as I was sharing with the group earlier, I learned a lot about rest.
Yes.
And as I was learning about rest, I learned that there's a lot of provision that comes in rest. And that was really important. And I just had story after story after story of provision.
Yeah.
There was one day that I was on trail and I had just used my last meal. I didn't have any supplies, and I was looking for a way to get around a fire closure. It was about 200 miles that I had to get through to get around. And I walked down to the near hotel where a lot of hikers send their supplies. I had actually sent a box there of the respirator masks.
Right.
And I told the lady, I said, I sent myself respirator masks. I don't need them. I don't know who might need them. But if you know somebody who it would be beneficial to, I want them to have them. And they were the really good 3M, the N97 respirator mask. And she says, oh, my daughter has been struggling with the smoke and this stuff, and she needs this mask. And so immediately it was right there, was the provision for who needed the mask.
Right.
Well, I turn around and I start walking out. And as I'm walking out, she says, well, why don't you grab one of our meals? Like they have a takeaway meal and for their guests. And I said, okay, great, thank you. And I got it, and it was like 2 pieces of fruit, 2 cups of yogurt, and a big slice of banana nut bread. And so the provision that I needed was exactly right there. Well, I had decided that day that I was just going to hitchhike around the fire closure. I'm walking down the highway. Somebody pulls over way down the highway. And I think maybe they're having car trouble. Maybe they're just tired and they're pulling over, taking out. And by the time I get there, they're like, hey, it was somebody that I knew
Yeah.
that I met on trail and they
Right.
picked me up.
Right.
And so we're driving down the road, we're going south.
Yeah.
And she just turns around and she goes, hey, here's a banana.
Wow.
And then I ate the banana and then she go, oh, we got an extra egg sandwich this morning as well. Do you want an egg sandwich? And I said, oh, that'd be great. And she gave me the egg sandwich and so I ate again another meal.
Wow.
And there was provision. And she ended up dropping me off in Redding, California. And I went to the Bethel campus and I actually went there just to see if they had like laundry service and shower service.
Right.
And they told me just because of the community, the homeless community, that they couldn't do shower service for them. And I thanked the lady and I went to their coffee shop. Well, 2 minutes later, she comes into the coffee shop and she prays over me and she
Wow.
prophesies over
Wow.
me and she hands me a $20 bill.
Awesome.
And I didn't tell her that I didn't have anything or didn't have any money. I never tell anybody what my needs are and I never ask for anything.
Yeah.
And so she gives me that. Well, I walked down to the grocery store and I bought all the groceries that I needed and it was like $20.30.
So good.
And then I'm hitchhiking again, I'm walking around, a guy picks me up and he says, I need to get gas. And I said, okay, great. And well, he pulls over and he says, well, why don't you let me buy you a drink and a burrito? And I said, okay. And so he bought me a big Gatorade and a big, huge burrito. So again, I had another meal.
Wow.
I'm hitchhiking out, I get as far as I can, I set up my tent on the side of the road. It's in a pretty thick fire area, lots of smoke. I get up early the next morning and I'm hitchhiking again, and I see this one of the fire crew trucks pass me. And then maybe an hour later, he comes back and he passes me the other direction, but he hits the brake really hard. And he comes back and he picks me up and he says, I felt like I was supposed to pick you up.
Yeah.
And I resisted. And he said, the further away that I got, the more that God pressed into me. And he said, God always gets his man. So he gave me a ride and he took me in a certain distance.
Yeah.
Dropped me off.
Yeah.
And I'm hitchhiking again. And some young kids, they pick me up. And as soon as I get in the car, the guy who's driving, he just reaches and he turns around and he hands me a king-size candy bar.
Oh my goodness.
And so here it is, I eat this big king-size candy bar. And they take me into a town, I thank them, I'm walking down the street. And as I'm walking down the street, a guy opens the door and he has two big tubs and he just sets them down there. And he says, oh, hey, if you need any of this stuff, just help yourself to it. And I open the tubs and it was excess supplies that had been collected for the firefighters. It was more than what they could use. And so they were just giving the rest of it away.
Yeah.
And it was snacks
Yeah.
and trail mix and bar. So I had gotten the bulk of my main course stuff for $20.
Wow.
And then the rest of my stuff, all the snacks, all the bars, everything I need was all there.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the door, there was a big bread rack there. And I asked him, what's the story with this bread? He goes, oh, the grocery stores give us their bread that doesn't sell the day before. And so there was, I got this huge loaf of garlic bread.
Awesome.
And it was my daily bread.
So good. This is more than daily bread.
It was more than daily, but it was so cool. I ate this whole loaf of this garlic bread. It was so good.
Yeah.
And as I'm eating this loaf, I get a text from, I had worked previously at a coffee shop and there was a knitting group that came in and they would knit every week.
Yeah.
And they said, we were thinking about you on trail and we just wanted to do something for you. And we took up a collection and here's $40.
Oh my goodness.
And so they sent me $40 to my PayPal. I went in and that day the smoke was really bad and it was super hot.
Right.
And now I've got cash and I bought the biggest cold drink that you can imagine. Well, afterwards, I'm hitchhiking again and another group picks me up and they take me all the way into Reno. And it turned out to be other hikers that I had met on the trail.
Yes.
And everywhere I go, they see my guitar. And it's kind of my signature. Oh, we know that guy. We need to pick that guy up. So they drop me off. I'm walking south. I've got this cash that the knitting club had given me. I go to this little Mexican restaurant. They don't speak any English there. It's also a little kind of Mexican grocery store. I get one day. Sam brought me my guitar. This is the signature guitar. that I would just play when I was on trail, and I would play for people and people would recognize it and do something. But I go into this little place, I order food, and then I just go outside and I'm sitting, because there's no seating in the place. I'm just sitting next to the building, I'm eating, somebody walks out of the building, they don't speak any English.
Right.
They have a wad of cash in their hands and they just hand me this wad of cash.
Wow,
And it was more than what I just spent on the meal,
awesome.
okay?
Yeah,
So I finished the meal, I'm walking along, I see a laundromat,
wow.
which is what I needed earlier when I was in California. I was looking
Yeah.
for a laundry, and I have this cash now.
Yeah.
And so I did my laundry. I'm folding my laundry. And another guy walks up to me, doesn't speak any English,
Yeah.
puts a wad of cash in my hand.
Wow,
More again than what I spend on the laundry.
what do you call that?
Provision. I mean, and this is like
Yeah.
one day.
Mm.
We're talking about the course of one day, and
Yeah.
the trip was like this every day. It
Wow.
was like provision, 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 provision. And it was like people I'd never met, people I'd never seen,
Yeah.
people I hadn't talked to in years.
Mm.
I had no idea of where the provision, like, I just knew I'm at rest.
Mm.
God's my provision.
Mm.
Everything came as I needed.
Awesome.
And it's just like, I could tell you
Mm.
day upon day upon day upon day, it was just like
Mm.
crazy miracles of provision that came in.
So good. So talking about your guitar, why do you always carry this small guitar everywhere you go? Today we went to a botanical garden, even there you brought the guitar.
Well, one, I just didn't see myself going 6 months without playing my guitar. And a regular guitar weighs a lot. They're heavy.
Yeah.
This is carbon fiber. It weighs just under 3 pounds. And it fits in the outside pocket, the mesh pocket on my backpack. And so it allowed me to have an opportunity to do that. Now, part of what I do and part of what I carry and what I play, there's a sound that I carry.
Mm.
And there's a sound that I release when I play.
Mm.
And so I'll go up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And I'll play for an hour to
Yeah.
the mountains, or I'll
Right.
play to the valleys, or I'll play to the lakes, or I sit under a big tree.
Yeah.
And so I'm communing with creation. It says creation is longing for the revealing of the sons of God. And so we have to show creation. We are the sons of God.
Yes.
And, you know, as I spoke with you guys tonight, creation is looking to get back into rest.
Right.
And so part of what I do is in my music, I carry rest and I release rest. And so
Yeah.
everywhere I go on the trail,
Yeah.
I bring rest.
Mhm.
And people don't realize it as well. It's like, you don't have to sing a worship song to bring people into
Yeah.
the throne room.
Yeah, just the music even.
But so other hikers can come along
Yeah.
and they can have encounters with God
Right.
and go into the throne room of God
Right.
just because there's instrumental music playing
Right.
and because we know what we carry
Right.
individually
Right.
and corporately as part of our house, and we release that
Yes.
to those people.
Right.
And so it's just, we often make it too complicated.
Mm.
And really it's simple because it's just show up,
Yeah.
just be rest,
Right.
and people will have encounters with God.
Yes. Set intention, start your trail, then you got it.
Yes?
Okay, so talking about trails, have you ever be afraid? I mean, I'm sure you might have seen some snakes and some of those crocodiles or those animals. How did you overcome fear, especially when you are going on a trail alone?
Okay, so this is maybe an interesting thing.
Yeah.
When I'm on trail, I've never been afraid.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you know who you are and you know whose you are, you know you're surrounded.
Yes.
You're surrounded by angels, you're surrounded by the blood of Jesus. And I was never a time when I thought, oh my gosh, something's gonna get me, something's gonna happen. But I did, as you said, I saw snakes, I saw bears, I saw alligators.
Yeah.
I've seen everything you can imagine, all kinds of wildlife.
Yeah.
And, but there was never a time when I was afraid or when I was concerned.
Mhm.
And probably contrary to common sense or reason, most people would say,
Yeah.
like, I didn't bring a knife.
Yeah.
you know, I certainly didn't bring a gun. I didn't bring any
From
protection or,
self-defense, yeah.
yeah. And then a lot of hikers, they had emergency GPS
Mm.
beepers,
Yeah.
pagers. So if
Right.
there was an emergency,
Yeah,
they could call and a helicopter would come and airlift somebody out.
right.
I didn't carry one of those. I just didn't feel like I had the need. I just, wherever I go, wherever I am, whether I'm walking the streets in Sri Lanka at night. And people tell me, oh,
Interesting.
you can't walk the streets, you know, there's people gonna mess you up, they're gonna.
Right,
I'm like, they're not gonna do anything.
Mhm.
You don't know who I am.
yeah.
It's like, so I have never had that concern.
Mhm.
Now, I understand that some people do.
Yeah.
And where people have that concern,
Mhm.
it's genuine, it's legitimate, and
Mm,
it's
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
You do what you need to,
Mhm.
where you feel security.
Mhm.
We know we're secure in Jesus, but where there's also a thing, if they need that GPS, the beeper that gives them that thing, it gives you peace of mind, do it.
Yeah.
You know, Johan, he recently did the big trail in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And he was not gonna take a knife. But for everyone else's peace of mind, they said, oh, you need to take a knife. And finally, they talked him into it and he did take a knife, but he was not going to do that as well. But so you first honor yourself of what you're aware of, where I need peace of mind
Right.
for my safety. Do I need to travel with other people?
Mm.
I did do a trail in Florida. The lady who invited me to hike, she did not want to hike alone because of alligators and snakes. And so I hiked with her so that she wouldn't have to be concerned about alligators and snakes.
Right,
And so I had to honor that. Like it didn't matter to me
yeah,
if there was an alligator or snake. I was looking for the snakes,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But so I honored that in her to give her what she needed for her peace of mind.
right,
And so we find what we need for our peace of mind, and then we honor one another so that if you need a gun or a knife or whatever it is for your peace of mind,
yeah.
I'm not gonna,
Stop me.
there's
Yeah.
no accusation, there's no
Right.
condemnation,
No
anything
judgment,
like that,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm gonna support you in that, I'm
Right.
gonna honor you in that, and we're just gonna go with that.
What did you do when you saw a big snake?
I took a picture of it.
Okay, 1 minute. Yeah,
Let me see you.
yeah. So he's
Okay.
going to show the picture of a snake.
Let me see, I marked it, so we should be able to find it pretty easy now.
Okay,
Okay. Let's see if we can
camera.
put this on the camera here.
Yeah.
I think the snake was about 7 or 8 feet long. I don't know if you can see that very well. But yeah, so the first thing I'm always doing is pull up my phone. I'm like, how close can I get to this thing and taking pictures and
What about the bears and the crocodile?
okay,
They
so
don't eat men, I mean, the human beings.
most of the bears, people think bears are really scary.
Yeah.
And they can be, grizzly bears can be, but they're in Alaska. And they're in Montana.
Yeah.
Most of the time, black bears are low key. They eat lots of berries.
Mhm.
I mean, like there is blackberries, blueberries, huckleberries on the trail, wild. And so it's like a smorgasbord for them. But when they see you, they usually just run as quick as they can because they don't want to mess with it. Now, the times when there are potential
Yeah.
is if you were to run into a cub and there was a mama bear there.
Mm.
So the mama bear is always going to be a mama bear.
Protective, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other possibility is that there are mountain lions in the places in the trail that I hiked. I didn't see any. My friends Tom and Lyndon, who were in Washington, actually caught one on their property when I was there the night that I was there.
Yeah.
But they didn't mess with me. I didn't have any problems with it. The alligators in Florida were all like low key. They're like, we see people every day. We're not gonna mess with you. We're not,
Okay.
it's
Let
like,
you go.
yeah, I mean, like they're cold-blooded, so they're mostly just sunning themselves, trying to keep their temperature regulated. And they're not like going after you, pursuing, they're not aggressive unless you provoke them.
Yes, okay. So how do these experiences help you on a day-to-day life? Like How does it contribute?
Oh, wow. Well, I think for me, the biggest thing, the big trail I did was the first trail I did. And the big takeaway that just has been every day
Mhm.
is just this concept of rest
Rest,
and being at rest
right?
and learning how to let rest flow through me and learning to recognize when I'm in unrest.
Yeah.
And how to get quickly back into rest.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the trail that I would say is a big thing.
Mm.
A lot of times in life, people take the easy route.
Yes,
Okay,
comfort zone.
comfort
Yeah.
zone, easy choice. Okay, left
Yeah.
fork, right fork, easy choice, easy choice. But sometimes we come to a place in life where life doesn't give us a choice. And so if we have a pattern of taking the difficult choice, then we actually build skill sets. So that when life doesn't give us a choice
Yeah.
and it's hard
Yeah.
and it's difficult,
Yeah.
we've got an ability to overcome it because
Yeah.
I've overcome, I've done the difficult thing.
Yes.
And so that was one thing I loved about this trail was like, I'm gonna choose what's hard. I'm gonna choose what's difficult, and the reward is when you finish it, you've finished something that was crazy difficult. And now the next time you face something that's crazy difficult,
Yeah.
it's not as crazy difficult.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. It's like, oh, I remember what I did last time.
Right.
I know what I can do this time.
Right.
No problem.
Yeah, it's a new life skill altogether.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. So we all know you're from the United States, and what are you doing in Sri Lanka?
What am I doing in Sri Lanka? And what am I doing now in India?
Yes. Yeah.
I love, wow. I love Kirby and Fiona.
Mhm.
And last year, on the cruise, I felt really strongly that I was supposed to give Kirby and Wow and Sri Lanka a year. And, I'm now 9 months into my year. My visa was not extended, and so I had to exit and re-enter.
Yeah.
And, of course, you and Sam have been just incredibly gracious, and I'm so humbled and honored to be here with you guys. It's been such a treasure.
Yeah.
And so I came to India to exit Sri Lanka so that I could go back in to get a new visa.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure having you, Christopher, with us. Now, before we end this, we are planning to I'm planning to take a team to Sri Lanka. So would you talk to our Indian folks why they should go to Sri Lanka?
There's something about being there in person to see and experience the culture of WoW that sometimes you don't always experience the fullness of that culture in the coach groups.
Right.
But when you're there and you see the honor of the house and you see
Yeah.
The way they treat each other and the way that they're solution minded and the way that, I mean, it's just something about being there. That's a launching point for people. Like I would say, anyone who's part of the WoW community at some point, it's like a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
You need to
Trail
go
from
to,
your country to Sri Lanka.
you need to go to
Yeah.
the Mecca.
Yes.
You need to go to
The
the
Holy Land,
to the
the mothership.
to the home country.
Yes.
And because there's something about it, there's something, okay, I'll use this term, all of our monitors, they reproduce colors. Okay, but they only reproduce a limited number of colors. There are some colors that exist in nature that they're not able to reproduce. Okay, so some of that is when Kirby is telling stuff to us, it's not broadcasted and reproducible through the screen to us.
Yes.
And you can only actually receive it when you're there. There's more that you get.
Yeah.
Like maybe the screen is able to reproduce 80% of the color spectrum. Well, there's 20% that you're missing out on.
Right.
Well, the same thing is true is that when we're listening to Kirby, and it's so awesome, it's powerful, and we're getting it, but we may only be getting about 80% of what's being transmitted. And then there's actually more that when you're there, and then there's a synergy, and then there's a synergy in the culture, and then there's things that you talk to and you bounce ideas off of people, and it's so there's an amplification that comes when you're in person.
So now that you've been in India since last 2.5 days, how do you like India? What would you like to talk about India and us?
About India.
Yeah.
Well, the little that I have seen, I absolutely love India. I love the people, I love the food, I love the culture. Where we are, I like the climate.
Yeah,
Where we went yesterday and there was those big outcroppings, the mountains and things, I was thinking, I could spend some time in India just going from town to town.
right.
And I love it. I'm excited to see what God has in store for India and
Right.
for
Yeah.
the expansion of
Yeah.
the divine orders, the
Amen.
holy orders,
Right. Yeah.
the expansion of the churches,
Yes.
and even as there are, 11,000 churches plus in the India group. Because now Kirby has been brought on board and he's gonna bring, I see that number is even gonna be expanded further
Right.
because of that growth of what's happening in WOW India.
Yeah,
And I'm excited about that
Yeah.
as well.
awesome. So, well, thank you for being with us and thank you for your time doing this podcast. So, does anybody have any questions on this? Please.
I do. Oh my God, Chris, that was amazing. So much. I just don't even know what to ask, what to even say, other than thank you for sharing all that you did. I mean, it's like I can live my life through you and experience that and be part of that. Just super honored and blessed by you so much. Yeah, from the guitar to the daily provision, how God shows up in so many ways, to having and not having, and being comfortable and the uncomfortable, and entering into stillness in already on a place of stillness, and interacting with nature. Very rich, Christopher. And your vision for India. That's what I guess I would have to ask is now. I know a lot of on the trail, a lot of the religion is Hindu, and I'm very interested to hear any adventures that you plan on. How long you're going to be there with Sam and Chitra, and if I missed that, and your adventures on the trail in India.
Okay. I will be with Sam and Chitra through about midday tomorrow. I go back to Sri Lanka tomorrow, so I'm just here 3 days. I definitely would love to spend time in India, and I could, I love the trail. I could easily be on trail 6 months of the year, every year. I could easily just go from trail to trail, just meeting people, experiencing discovery. There's so much to see, and it's like when I did the big trail, it was like some people live in California all their lives and they never see even the Sierra Nevada. They never see Yosemite. They never, and it's like, you can't imagine how much you saw that 99% of the people never see. So I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what my next assignment is or my next season is. I'm definitely committed to finishing out my season with Kirby and with WOW in Sri Lanka. And I think in part, some of that's going to go back to the States and spend time with family. But the next season after that, of where I'm going to go or what my assignment's going to be, I'm not sure yet.
No doubt it'll be adventurous and provided for and amazing. So, well, thank you again, Chris. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else want to ask anything from Chris? Would you like to pray a prayer of blessing over all the participants and all of us here?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Prayer of rest.
And I would ask too, if I may, if no one else, if you could get close to the microphone, Chris, we could hear you play your guitar maybe for just a minute.
Let me do that first.
Or yeah, if that would lead right into prayer. So, yay, thank you, Chris. And yeah. That was awesome, Chris. I could hear it on my end. I put my headphones in so I could hear way better, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Very beautiful.
All right. And so as I was just sharing with the Bangalore group, impartation is when we take a part of ourselves to give to someone else. And so one of the things I carry is rest. And I shared before, whatever is lacking in any situation, when I show up, I will bring the rest.
The rest and the rest.
The rest and the rest, yes. So I'll carry the rest. So I'm going to just speak over you guys and release to you rest.
Yes.
And so I just want to encourage you guys, as you receive a little part of me, just nurture it.
Yes.
Steward it, foster it, and let yourself grow in rest. And so Jesus, we just thank you that you are rest and that you entered into rest for us so that we could enter into rest. And we do not want to be like the children of Israel who failed to enter into the rest. And we recognize that when Adam and Eve ate of the tree, that they entered into unrest. And we choose to enter back into rest, into the completed work, that everything is done, everything is finished. And so right now, I just release a heavy, weighty rest upon every person, that it would just be peace of mind, peace of emotions, peace in the body, and that it would just be a supernatural, incredible flow of rest that they would start on in this journey. And it would be just an incredible transformative experience for them as they come into and grow in the place of rest.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Amen.
And thank you, guys.
Amen.
You.
Amen.
Good night. Have a good
Amen.
day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Chitra.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the Bangalore
Thank you,
work is
Chitra.
telling you guys bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Chitra.
Bye-bye. Bless you guys.